Welcome everybody to the Texas Fan Battle Podcast. It is your host, Bo, one third of the amazing trio. Shout out to my brothers, Crenshaw, who will be here soon, and Matt, A1 Day One Texans. Shout out to y'all, man. But we have two amazing rock stars on our show tonight. Give it up for Cody Stoots and Nick Scurfield. How y'all doing today?
Great, man. Great. It's I see Nick all around town, but we never just sit and chop it up and talk, so this will be fun.
Absolutely. I think I saw you at J Bar and Barbecue not too long ago, Cody, last time. And man, we're excited. I'm excited to be on the show with Cody. I'm excited to be on with all you guys to talk some Texans here.
Okay, perfect. That's why we're here. We're going to jump right into NFL news. Okay, a lot of crazy things been happening this week. We have some, quarterbacks who's been benched. We have a really big name as well, Mr. Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited, as they call him. How do you guys feel about Russell Wilson being benched?
Thank God he's not on the Texans. I know there was some folks that were hoping when Russ changed teams, the Texans would get involved. They never did, and man, it just time after time, it just feels like trading significant draft capital for players blows up in teams' faces more often than it does work out for them. And this is yet another one. Not only they trade draft capital for him, they trade draft capital for the coach. No draft capital. They're going to lose financial capital when they get rid of him. It's just a disaster for Denver. And he hadn't played poorly, but for what you're expecting and what you're hoping out of Russell Wilson, it hadn't been there.
Man, I think it's crazy. It's just a reminder of how the NFL is. They say not for long, right? NFL. And, you look at how the Broncos started the season, in such a big hole and like the sky was falling there. Then they went on that big win streak until they came and played the Texans. It's just amazing how much can change week to week in this league. And you think about Russell Wilson, just a few years ago, or what he was like in Seattle with those dominant teams they had, obviously winning a Super Bowl, coming, a yard short of winning another one. And man, it's just, I think nothing is guaranteed in the NFL. And that's what it really reminds me of. And it's a team that's not even out of the playoff race, right? They're still trying to hold on to a spot there, or maybe make a late run. So I just, it's crazy to me how fast things change in this league.
I know. It's amazing to me. I believe that the Broncos, they gave him a great coach. They said we have weapons for you, and it's not working out. But I just can't imagine that they cut him or move off of him, because that would be just a terrible salary cap hit to them. So with that being said, do you think that this is his last season as a Denver Bronco? I'm going to start with Nick.
Man, I have no idea, actually. I saw some stuff about the salary cap implications, and that's what they're trying to do to prevent him from playing more so they can save some money if and when they do cut him. I would guess, I really I pay a lot more attention to the Texans than I do these other teams, but it sure seems like a bad sign, when a guy's getting benched this late in the season in the middle of a potential playoff run.
Yeah, I mean, look, he expects to get cut. That's what he told Diana Rossini. And I mean, if you're going to make this sort of move, you're going to part ways. And I'm sure he'll be out there for some broadcast network to have on TV, because I don't know that he's going to play football again.
And that was my next question. Like, do you guys see him on what team do you think he would be able to help if he did move on from the Denver Broncos, or who do you think would take a chance on him?
CBS's pregame show. That's where I see him.
They joined JJ Watt over there.
They've been looking to get younger in CBS, and Burleson's one of their stars. They've had a little bit of JJ Watt worked in there. They love quarterbacks there. I mean, you think about who's used to be on there with Marino, who's on there now with Sims and Boomer. Why not add another TV guy?
So you guys don't think? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead. Nick.
I think Russell Wilson's going to be okay, whatever happens to him, wherever he ends up. But I mean, I don't know. I think you look at Baker Mayfield, with the Bucs and the season he's having, and how he went from he went to the Rams as kind of a desperation play there, and now he's having this resurgent year. I wouldn't count Russell Wilson out totally just yet. I think you look at what Baker Mayfield did, it makes me feel like anything's possible with a guy like Russ.
Okay. So you guys don't think he go back and plays baseball? You don't think he tries to jump into the MLB since he did? Try, I guess. No.
No.
Okay. Okay. Moving on with the another situation with the quarterbacks. Sam Howell was also benched, and Tommy DeVito, Mr. Tommy Cutlets, was benched. I've said this whole season so far, it's been this year of the backup quarterbacks. Do you guys see? I'm really interested more for Sam Howell. Do the Commanders keep him, or is he done?
I mean, depends who their coach is next year. Does he want to start fresh? Does he want to try to go get a young guy that's younger than Hal, or one of his guys that he's familiar with? So hard to say with who their coach is. It'd be worth keeping around, kicking the tires. But I mean, you get benched for Jacoby Brissett. I don't know if that's a ringing endorsement on your potential future in the NFL.
Okay.
Man, all I would say is just the fact that having this conversation with you guys right now makes me really happy the Texans have CJ Stroud.
Yes, exactly. Every time there's some sort of quarterback conundrum elsewhere, I'm just thinking to myself, my God, that could be the Texans.
That could be the Texans.
And instead, we're just like, yeah, actually, CJ Stroud's awesome, and I can't wait for him to be back.
Okay, great. And last NFL news before we jump into the Texans news, did you guys happen to see Travis Kelce throw a fit on the sideline? And how do you think that's going to change the dynamic in the Kansas City's locker room? Is it the end of a dream? Is the era done? Or how do you see that going on? I'm going to start with Cody.
Hey, you pick against them in the playoffs if you want. I'm not going to. I mean, that's proven, tried and true. I know it's looked a little rough, but I'm not picking against Kansas City when it's crunch time.
Yeah, I would say I'm a big Travis Kelce fan. Not just because he's dating Taylor Swift, but Travis Kelce has been, he's been the best tight end in the game for a while. He's probably the greatest tight end ever. And I agree with Cody. I would not count them out of anything as long as that guy's on the field along with Patrick Mahomes. I think, it's crazy that the Texans are, what are we, a game behind the Chiefs in the standings, maybe 2 games at this point in the season, 1 game. Yep. And that to me is a sign that obviously the Chiefs are faltering a little bit, but of how far the Texans have come as well. But I think those guys, when they get in the playoffs and Patrick Mahomes has the ball in his hands, I think anything could happen.
Yeah, I don't want to be a Chiefs hater, but they have destroyed a lot of my hopes and dreams as a Texas fan. So it's kind of nice to see them struggle a little bit. And if we do, Texas, they do make it to the playoffs, I don't feel as bad going against the Chiefs. I feel like they are beatable. Granted, like you said, it's Pat Mahomes, it's Travis Kelce, Andy Reid. They're still who they are. But at the end of the day, I feel like there's chink in the armor. We see the weaknesses. So I will say that I'm happy that it's kind of rocky in Kansas City right now.
of the potential teams you could play in the playoffs, they're last on my list. I don't want to see them in the playoffs. I don't want to see them. 24-0, I'll never forget.
Oh, man, tell me about it. So let's go ahead and jump into the Texas news. Okay, for the Texas news here, CJ Stroud is back at practice. I wish I could make some noise and just clap and back and do backflips. How do you guys feel about seeing CJ Stroud back at practice? I'm going to start with Nick.
I'm fired up. I think the whole city of Houston's fired up. I got the old Oilers colors hat I'm wearing right here. It's actually an Astros hat, but I'm hyped about this game against the Titans. I think the last game against the Titans made it that's one of the best Texans wins I've probably ever seen, and getting CJ Stroud back for this one, the last home game of the year, as tough as it's been to see, the game the Texans had last week against the Browns, which was, not only did we lose playoff position, but we also lost in draft position. Now you got CJ Stroud back and everything's right in front of us. The Texans can win these last 2 games. And if they can beat the team that used to be the Houston Oilers here in Houston, they've got a great shot to make the playoffs. And I think NRG Stadium is going to be hopping on Sunday. It's New Year's Eve, and I'm looking forward to that. And it's kind of like we were just talking about with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Anytime you've got CJ Stroud in your lineup playing quarterback, even as a rookie, as a Texans fan, you feel like the Texans can win that game. And that's how I feel, with him being back in practice now.
The mood at practice, the mood in the building, almost you're only there for, as a media member, a few hours, but it just, you could feel like a little bit of juice and excitement in the air. Like there was kind of like the first week, it was just kind of like a little somber, like, okay, here we go. And then last week there was still like well, he's not going to play again this week. But this week, turn the corner, saw him just stretching with the other quarterbacks, and you're like, all right, let's go. All right, the Texans that we've been impressed with this season are back, or at least closer to where they were impressing us on a weekly basis. It just feels different. We know in the Shroud is close to being back.
Yeah. These past couple weeks, they've been teasing us. They'd be like, well, maybe he will, maybe he won't, because D'Amico is he's very quiet guy. He's not out there boastful, just telling everything that's going on. So as the fans, outside looking in, we're just like, man, we need some news. Give us some information. Let us know what's going on. Is he okay? But to see him out there stretching and mobility and throwing the football, it gave me peace. It gave me peace in my soul, and I was happy to see it. But also in Texas news, we have Blake Cashman. Blake Cashman returned to practice this week. How do you feel about Blake Cashman? Is he going to play this week or not? We'll start with Cody.
Yeah, I would think he plays. He gets back on a limited basis on the first day. Wednesday's a lighter day. For the Texans, typically you get a lot of rest days, a little bit lighter. Thursday, Friday, the big day. They practice Thursday, even in limited capacity, they usually play. It's pretty rare to see guys go backwards. So limited today, and then practice Thursday, Friday. Cashman's back in the lineup, and that changes a lot of what you can do defensively, because Cashman's one of your best cover guys at the linebacker spot. So you could change some things up. You could use guys in different ways. You can use Cashman in different ways. D'Amico's blitzed him a couple of times this year, and it's really surprised quarterbacks. So that middle of the field is a little bit safer when Cashman's back in the lineup.
Yeah, and Cody's around the team a lot more than I am, and if it looks good to Cody, it sounds good to me. So I think I'm excited to hear. What did he have, like 19 tackles a month or two in that Cardinals game? And I'll be honest, I did not know who Blake Cashman was before the start of this season, and he's been balling out, man. He's fun to watch, and so I think with the injuries the Texans have had, getting a guy like that back on the field is going to be a big thing.
Playing the best football of his life in a free agent, set to be a free agent as well. So it's like perfect timing for him. Injury bugs kind of hurt him throughout his career. He's been dinged a couple times this season, but hey, finish strong, playoff game or 2 or 3 or 4. And next thing you know, Blake Cashman's getting a big payday from either the Texans or somebody come free agency time.
Agreed. Yes, you can definitely see on the field when he's not out there. You'd be like, where's 53 at? Where is he at? Why is that running back wide open? Why is that tight end wide open? Oh, Lord. Why they throw in the middle? 53 must not be out there. So it's going to be amazing to see him back out on the field. They're a different unit. When there's Perryman, Harris, and Cashman all together flying around, they are amazing. We also have news about Will Anderson being out of the boot. Cody, I'm going to let you take the lead on that one. How do you feel about Will Anderson being out of the boot?
KPRC reported he's out of his walking boot. He's walking around at practice today, just observing. No practice for Will Anderson, but D'Amico Ryan seemed to feel like he was trending in the right direction. I don't know if he's going this week. Watching practice on a Wednesday, maybe he gets on the field Thursday or Friday, but the fact that he's out there watching means he's pretty close to returning, which means he's pretty close to being back in the game. If he's not playing against Tennessee, I feel pretty good about him playing against Indianapolis to wrap up the season. So I think he's pretty close, and man, it would – I don't know if the defensive rookie of the year conversation is still within reach for him, but it'd be real nice to have him not only for just an important game in Indianapolis, but the potential for a playoff game, have him out there. Their run defense is totally different when he's there. I know it looked good against Tennessee a couple weeks ago. The run defense is totally different. The amount of pressure they can put on teams is totally different. He brings so much to the table. And I think, Nick, you can speak to this. He's exciting to watch. It just so many defensive linemen in the history of the Texans have been exciting.
And speaking of, did you guys see Jadeveon Clowney in that Monday night game on Christmas? Just absolutely destroying the 49ers.
Yes.
I feel like that was something to see. But good. I'm glad to see Clowney get that wish we would have had a little more of that in Houston. But to your point, Cody, there's been a lot of highly drafted defensive linemen. Of course, Mario Williams, the number 1 overall pick, who put up some big numbers with the Texans and had a long career. But, man, Will Anderson looks like the real deal. I mean, between him and C.J. Stroud from this draft, I was calling that he was going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year all offseason. And, with the injuries, I don't know if that's going to be possible. But what does he have, 19 quarterback hits on the season? And everything that you hear about him, and Cody, I'm sure you see this when you're there covering the team, but everything you hear about him, it's not just what you see on the field, but it's how he is off the field, how he prepares, how hungry he is, how driven he is. And, man, as a fan, that just gets me fired up. I think they have a cornerstone on their defense for a long time, and looking forward to seeing him make some plays whenever he gets back.
And yes, I know hindsight is 2020, but I want to ask you guys, just piggybacking off of Nick's comment about David Clowney. At the beginning of the season, before the season started, he made his way to Houston, and they for other reasons they couldn't get the deal done. Also with DeAndre Hopkins. Now what we know now, I'm going to start with Nick. Should we have brought back Clowney?
Oh, I would have been all for bringing back DeAndre Hopkins 1,000%. That guy, I mean, that will go down as one of the worst trades in NFL history when Bill O'Brien gave him away for a 2nd-round pick and David Johnson. No offense, but that was some mind-boggling trade. And that guy, we went from having Andre Johnson to DeAndre Hopkins, and it was almost like the Green Bay Packers going from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, or the Colts at quarterback with Andrew Luck, or Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck. We had like a wide receiver dynasty lined up. And the Texans traded him away. So I would have loved to see Hop back. It was really weird to see him in those Oilers uniforms.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that a little more, I'm sure.
Yes, we will.
But Clowney, who knows? I mean, Clowney, he's always been a guy that I think I've heard from other players in the league that when they watch game film, of the Texans, they would stop the tape and point out Clowney running 30 yards across the field to go chase down a running back, and how fast and big he was. He's always been a guy with amazing talent, and had some productive seasons here in Houston. But I don't know. I definitely would have loved to see DeAndre back. That's for sure.
It's sort of like a weird alternate reality, because it's like, do you get Nico Collins taking it to the next level and Tank Dell showing up as a rookie if DeAndre Hopkins is here as sort of that target necessary wide receiver? Does Will Anderson and Jonathan Grenard happen the way it's happened this year if Clowney's here to play some of those snaps? So it's one of those unanswerable questions. I thought the Hopkins marriage made a lot more sense because it was a complete unknown from a wide receiver room standpoint. I mean, there was a lot more confidence in the defensive end situation than there was the wide receiver room coming into the season. But it's fun to say, well, what if? But the ramifications, the butterfly effect, flaps its wings halfway across the world, and there's a tsunami the other halfway across the world. Like the butterfly effect of hey, would you rather have aging DeAndre Hopkins on the big contract that he's got, or would you rather Nico turn into a 1, close to a 1, have Tank Dell have the season he had? Okay, I kind of lean Nico and Tank Dell as cool as it would be to have Hopkins. The Clowney thing is interesting because a motivated Jadeveon Clowney is one of the better defensive linemen in the league. I don't know how often you get motivated Jadeveon Clowney. Cleveland had him 2 years ago, but they didn't have him as much last year. Now, the Ravens definitely got him this year. I think Clowney sees another big contract in his future, and I think he sees the potential to put some hardware on his finger. I think that's really got him, kind of dialed in and dialed up.
Yeah, the Ravens are flying around. They're to me right now, they're the team to beat, especially after what they just did to the 49ers. But I do agree with you. I feel like it does, when you bring in certain veterans, it stifles your growth of your young players. I do agree with that. When it comes to Clowney, I think it would have been better than Hop, just because D'Amico loves to rotate defensive linemen. He, as you can see, sometimes they're on the field, they rotate through a lot of guys. So he would have had a lot of chances to, impact the game. With Hop, I feel like they felt like Robert Woods was that guy. I feel like they was like, Robert Woods is our veteran. We're going to go let him mold our young receiving core. And if you bring in Hop, maybe there are distractions. Maybe there's he has a big head. He's a diva receiver. People don't think he is, but I feel like he's a diva receiver. He's gonna want the ball. He's probably gonna have some off the field. You see what he has with Will Levis. They have some back and forth going on the sideline. So he's gonna let his voice be heard. So hindsight 2020, of course, you want their productions, but I think they made the right choice of letting the young players grow together. And with that being said, with the Texas news, we're going to okay, this one I want to get to. We have K-Jack is back. Kareem Jackson is no longer a Bronco. He is a Houston Texans once again. How do you feel about that, Cody?
It's nice when you can add a veteran with a lot of playing experience this late in the season, and I'm sort of echoing what D'Amico Ryans said. But when you swap out Jimmy Ward for Kareem Jackson, there's not a huge drop off in hope and expectation from your veteran. Like Jimmy Ward, to me, at this point in their careers, is a little bit better football player. But do I want to put Kareem Jackson and all his years of NFL experience out there, or do I want to trust somebody who maybe hasn't played as much, hasn't played in a similar style of defense, or really? I mean, here's the thing about Kareem Jackson: he's feared around the NFL now. I mean, guys getting suspended for hitting people, like Kareem Jackson patrolling the middle of the field. You really want to go take that route over the middle of the field?
Like, I want to catch this ball. Yeah.
All of a sudden, everybody got alligator arms coming across the middle. So, So I like the addition of Kareem Jackson. It just feels good, and for him, I mean, 22 is a weird number for him in Houston. But Desmond King's got 25 right now, and it probably was a big shock for him rolling into the locker room because that thing looks a whole heck of a lot different than the last time he was here.
Yeah, I would just say to chime in on Kareem. I mean, I'm really fired up about that. So I worked for the Texans from 2007 to 13. I was the writer for the team website, HoustonTexans.com, and Kareem was a rookie then in 2010 when he got drafted. So I was around him for 3-4 seasons, and I've always been a big fan of his. I remember when he was a first-round pick out of Alabama. The 2010 season was a rough one for the Texans. They had the fourth worst passing defense in NFL history that year, if my memory serves me correctly. And Kareem was the number one corner as a rookie. He was put on an island a lot, and he was getting booed. I remember there was a game against the Chargers and Phillip Rivers where he just got torched at Reliance Stadium back then. And I remember he's getting booed by the fans. He was getting criticized by the media all over social media. But he stuck with it, and then he ended up, he's now in his 14th season in the NFL. He had some great years for the Texans with Jonathan Joseph for a long time, really blossomed into a great player. And I've always enjoyed watching him. I hated to see him get suspended like he did. Obviously, he's been hitting guys with some abandon in the past few weeks, but I think he's a physical guy. He's a super smart guy. Going back to his days at Alabama, I remember that's one thing the Texans loved about him. Getting coached by Nick Saban and just how smart of a corner he was. And now as a safety, I'm really fired up. And the fact that he played with D'Amico Ryans and now he's playing for D'Amico Ryans, obviously he provides a veteran leadership and a guy that's probably going to help to instill a lot of the stuff that D'Amico is wanting. You were talking about, DeAndre and Clowney, and should we have brought those guys back? To me, this is a guy that's a no-brainer, as a former Texan, because I think it's only going to enhance the locker room culture for the Texans.
Hey, Nick, who feels older hearing that Kareem played with D'Amico and is now getting coached by him? Is it Kareem? Is it D'Amico? Or is it us because we've covered the team since then?
Yeah, probably all of the above.
Exactly.
But shout out to John Weeks as well, the long snapper. I think Kareem Jackson joins him now as former teammates to be playing for D'Amico Ryans. And speaking of guys that have been around for a long time, but I think it's crazy to think about how recently D'Amico was playing, but the fact that some of these guys are still going like Kareem. I'm excited to see what he can do when he's on the field.
Sure.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's been one of the things, when Kareem was here in the past, I used to always just, shake my head like, why is he at corner? I feel like he was always better safety than a corner, in my opinion. But for some reason, the Texans wanted him at cornerback. But nevertheless, we have Crenshaw in the building, everybody. Crenshaw is in the building. What is up, man? Do you have any thoughts on the Kareem Jackson returning?
sorry for my tardiness. Nick, appreciate you coming on, even with USC playing right now. So that's huge for us,
Hey, man.
Appreciate that. And Cody, thank you for coming on. Houston football in the building. Kareem coming back. I mean, we need all the help we can get back there because the secondary has been horrible. He can't cover, but like you guys say, he's going to hit somebody, and hopefully that brings fear out to the other receivers when they come across the middle and everything. But I'm happy he's back. Especially early in the year when all the old teammates came and took that one picture with JJ Watt and everything, and he was in that picture. That was almost like a reunion right there. So I'm glad he's back on the team. And Cody, you think he plays Sunday, or are they going to hold him out one more week?
Man, I think I probably need him Sunday. If he's up to speed and he's feeling good, run him out there and maybe the first game is sort of a little bit of a split with him and DeAndre Houston Carson, and then maybe Kareem, once he gets more in tune with everything, kind of takes over a lot of what Jimmy Ward brought to the table. But they're not afraid to run a couple of safeties out there in addition to the starters. So I would think you see 22 on the field. Jackson 22, so you can't dust off the old 25 uniforms. But Kareem, I would think he's on the field Sunday. Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on, which is a good segue because we're talking about safeties. Another one bites the dust. I hate to say it, but Jimmy Ward is on IR. How big of a hit is that? I'm going to start with Nick.
I think it is a hit just because he's one of the guys that came over from San Francisco, and obviously, when you have a guy like that, oftentimes those guys are instrumental in helping to implement a system, from top to bottom, I think. So he's obviously made some big plays this year. That's going to be tough, but that's the NFL, man. There's just so many injuries, to the Texans this year. Guys like Tank Dell that you see go down, and half the offensive line for the entire season. So, unfortunately, they're gonna have to find a way to do without it. But I'm excited that silver lining there that Kareem Jackson's back, and hopeful that he can help to fill the void.
Yeah, with adding Kareem certainly helps a little bit, but the big thing you hear about with Jimmy Ward is the communication for the defense, especially the secondary, is better when he's on the field. So who takes over that role? Who's going to step up and be communicating there on the defense? It's great you get Cashman back. That's a good guy. But even in the secondary, like who's taking over? Who's kind of, sorting things out? I would think that hopefully that's eventually Kareem, but he just got here. So it's sometimes tough for new guys to sort of take over the communication role. It's not Jalen Petrie to me. So who's communicating? Got to make sure that everybody's set up and organized the way that they need to be. And it stinks from that standpoint. And then from Jimmy Ward, I mean, he's almost played the same amount of quarters that he's going to be hurt this season. And so that's a tough part of the season because you were counting on him quite a bit. And that secondary, it just feels like they played just a tiny handful of games with the expected secondary over the course of the season. So you have to look forward to next season to see him a little bit more.
So are you saying next season? So you think he's? I know they signed for 2 years, but you think they're going to cut him or anything? He's definitely coming back.
Man, it's a big message to send to get rid of that guy. Captain, trusted advisor to the coaching staff with the leadership committee involvement stuff, vocal guy that helped them reorganize and reset earlier this season when he would demand that they do extra 2-minute practices or extra 2-minute work during practice and after practice. So it's like, I understand he got hurt, and I understand even the production when he was healthy wasn't quite to the same level that everybody expected, but that's it's people talk about moral victories sometimes. Like intangibles matter more than moral victories. Like there's a lot of intangibles to Jimmy Ward being a part of this team, even if the football and the availability is not as high as you would have hoped or expected it to be. So I'd be surprised if Jimmy Ward is shown the door just because of who he is on this team and what he means to this team.
Nick, what you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. And I think that the Texans are building for the long term right now. I think a guy like Jimmy Ward, again, to me, that's a guy that D'Amico Ryans brought him over from San Francisco for a reason. So I'd be surprised if he wasn't in Houston again next year. And also, I think that as much as obviously I'm hoping the Texans make the playoffs and we get to see some maybe 1 or 2 games at NRG Stadium, like you said, come January, I think I really thought that they were going to be a playoff team in 2 or 3 years. So all this to me as a fan is a huge bonus. And I think we're playing with house money right now. And, I'm excited for where the team is, and I'm hoping, they can break through to the playoffs and get some of that valuable postseason experience. And with a quarterback like CJ Stroud, you never know what could happen. So, but I think Jimmy Ward's going to be a key part of this defense next year. I'd be surprised if he's not.
Okay, all right. So last Sunday we played the Browns, and we did our end of the show recap. But I want to get you guys' thought on the game. What went wrong? And I'm gonna start with you, Mr. Nick. What went wrong in that game?
It seemed like just about everything went wrong. From what was it, the second play of the game or first play of the game when Flacco had that big bomb down to Amari Cooper. I mean, Joe Flacco just turned back the time machine. And I mean, he's putting up numbers the last few weeks, and I feel like he looks better than he ever did in Baltimore. I see you put up the stats here: 368 yards and 3 touchdowns, and the 2 picks. But man, it was tough to watch. I was really fired up about Case Keenum, the legend of Case Keenum, maybe continuing to grow with this game after he had that big start, in the win on the road in Tennessee. But man, it was, I definitely think injuries, you don't want to make excuses, right? But I mean, I think it's impossible to ignore the effect the injuries had on the team, of course, at the quarterback position, but also elsewhere. And man, the Browns just totally had the Texans number. And I think all in all, 1 out of 2 against the Titans and the Browns, not too bad, and still alive in the playoffs. So,
yeah, I mean, that's a Super Bowl defense you went against. Super Bowl defense, you went against them with a backup quarterback, a bunch of guys not 100% on offense. And look, Cleveland's got a bunch of injuries too, but they've got injuries and they still played at an extremely high level, in large part because all those guys have played together over the course of a few years. That's a coaching staff that's been together for a few years now. I don't know how well they were going to move the ball going in that game. I didn't feel great about it, but just the way Cleveland's defense played, the Texans were not going to score enough points to win that game. And then they got way more out of Joe Flacco than I expected. I was shocked. I mean, D'Amico Ryan said after the game, we knew that they wanted to go deep to Amari Cooper. They wanted to throw the deep ball, and we did not execute to take that away from them and keep them from doing that. And that was a big miss. This defense has had those bounce-back performances, though. You think about what they did against the Jets in the second half, and then they bounced back against the Titans. Oh, look who's on the schedule next. It's the Tennessee Titans. So I'd be not thrilled to be playing offense for the Titans this week if I was in Tennessee getting ready for this Texans team that I'm sure has been getting chewed out nonstop since this game against the Browns happened. And I asked D'Amico about this today in the press conference. I said, look, when you have a game like that, do you focus a bunch on, hey, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong? Or do you kind of just move on and say, this is what it needs to be, this is how you need to do it right? And he said, well, we sit there, we go over every play, we're really honest with each other, we all have thick skin, and we figure out what went wrong. And I was like, oh, goodness, I can't imagine being in that DB room going over all that film and seeing Amari Cooper go for 265 like he had a T.Y. Hilton mask on. Like, oh, man, that was a rough week for the DBs.
Okay, so I know our defense don't allow for the cornerbacks to shadow them, but why you think D'Amico didn't make the change for that game? Why didn't allow Stingley to shadow him?
So D'Amico Ryan's defense doesn't travel cornerbacks, and typically, I'm not saying they never, typically doesn't double wide receivers. That's just not the way he coaches. That's not the way he likes to play. He likes to let guys and coverage dictate things. I don't believe the safety work with the corners was good enough in the Browns game. I feel like that was a major issue. Will say this. When you have a Steven Nelson go down, when you have some of the injuries that you're dealing with, maybe you do think about doing something out of character so that you don't have D'Angelo Ross on Amari Cooper 101. That being said, if you don't want to change things drastically, maybe you do add a little bit of extra help over the top so that D'Angelo Ross doesn't end up getting, cooked like he did by Amari Cooper. Like, when that guy's not as talented as the guy he's replacing, how do you make up for it? Is it extra help? The pass rush didn't help the situation either. So in mitigating circumstances, you should maybe have a conversation about changing. I hope we never see DeMeco Ryans in that situation again, because if we do, something's gone terribly wrong. I hope he never gets the opportunity to change that again. But if that presents itself next time, and you saw Derek Stingley later playing Amari Cooper, I would think that the change happens earlier than it did on Sunday.
Okay, so this next question is for you, Nick. This is from Matthew Briggs, one of our co-hosts. Should we have went to Mills a lot sooner than we did?
Maybe. I mean, but I didn't really have a problem with what they did. I think DeMeco Ryans went with Case Keenum, who's a guy, he's been around for a long time, in the Titans game. And to me, that seemed like a really savvy move, and helped the Texans to get a huge, huge win on the road in Nashville in their first game without CJ. I think it would have been crazy to make a switch for that game going into the game with Case. But, the offense was having a really brutal game. But, at what point do you make that switch? I mean, I don't know. I think I will say it was nice to see David Mills spinning it a little bit out there. Of course, he was going up against probably some of the reserves, and it was garbage time and all that. But, man, I thought he looked like a young TJ Yates out there for a minute, scrambling, almost went in for the touchdown on the left side there. It was shades of Cincinnati in 2011 maybe, but obviously a much different circumstance back then. But I think that I think DeMeco made the call to go with Case. Case was the guy, and he wanted to try to ride that out. So I can't fault him for it.
Okay, one last question. This is for both of you guys. Could you guys tell me throughout the season, what are your takes on Stingley and Nelson's progression? Like, who needs more help, or they're just as right where you guys think there should be?
I love what both those guys brought to the table. For most of the first part of the season, Steven Nelson's one of the best players on the team. Injuries, and I think the way that people have attacked him over the past couple of weeks has shown up a little bit more. I don't trust that when we see Steven Nelson be wrong, that it's always his fault. And then from a Derek Stingley perspective, I mean, he's finally as advertised. Like, Sunday wasn't good for anybody. Everybody looked bad Sunday, but Stingley's finally as advertised, and it's scary to think that he's played half a season. He's still learning. He can still get better than what he is now, because he's pretty darn good right now. I actually heard two NFL writers in the press box on Sunday having a discussion about how could they see Derek Stingley getting in the conversation for the Pro Bowl, and maybe even getting, not necessarily first team All-Pro, but All-Pro mentions from people. And the guy missed half the season. So it's like, that's the type of interest that people have sort of taken in Derek Stingley's game. I like both of them. In a perfect world, you'd love to have both of them back next year. I don't know that that's extremely possible with Steven Nelson set to hit free agency, but you never know. You got a lot of money to spend, and I'd be intrigued to see it run back with those two guys. Certainly one more year, but I got to think Steven Nelson's probably looking for a multi-year commitment when he hits free agency. But I've loved both their work over the course of the season.
Okay, Nick.
Yeah, I saw an interview CJ Stroud did a couple weeks ago where he called Derek Stingley a generational talent. And I think he said that it was something to the effect of that he is the best athlete on the team, hands down. And to hear that from CJ, that spoke volumes to me. And, you can see why the Texans drafted him where they did. Everybody was, throwing their hands up in the air that he got picked right before Sauce Gardner, who was a Rookie of the Year. But by all accounts, this is the right system, the right coach for him with DeMeco Ryans, and he's been showing it, man. And I think that it looks like, the Texans have not just a good player, but a premier player with Derek Stingley, and that's huge. You think about that with Will Anderson, with C.J. Stroud, with maybe the best left tackle in the league in Laramie Tunsil. You've got a lot of the key positions locked down right there with talent that's going to be around for a while. Tank Dell at wide receiver, hopefully, of course, he has a speedy recovery and is back next year, which I'm sure he will be. But, I agree with Cody on saying both the guys have been fun to watch. Steven Nelson made a lot of plays in the first part of the season. And I think he's a guy that, as a fan, you'd love to see that core, that secondary be able to stick together for sure.
Okay. Bo, you got anything else on this game before we move on?
No, I'm good to go. I'm good to go. Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna preview the Titans game. So Titans game preview, man. CJ Stroud most likely to start. Cody, yes, no?
I would be surprised at this point if he doesn't start. Yes.
Okay. So CJ starts. Cody, give me your thoughts. How think the game should go? Where do we need to hit them at to win? I know we just beat them, but it's hard to beat a team twice, especially a division rival. What should we do? Give me the keys to victory.
I feel like Clubber Lang and Rocky 3. Prediction? Pain. 2 weeks ago, you beat this team up. That's not going to happen again. That doesn't happen in the NFL, even with bad teams, even with teams struggling, even with teams that are in a less talented situation than they were a couple of weeks ago. They've had a couple more starters go on IR since that game against the Texans. Even with the huddles getting, broken as 1, 2, 3 Cancun because guys are ready for the offseason there, you're not going to dominate a team like you did just a couple of weeks ago. You would think that Tennessee does a little bit more to get Derrick Henry going. They did a bad job with a bunch of up-the-middle stuff against the Texans, and the Texans were just bearing down on him and ready for it. Every starter on the Texans defensive line missed practice today. So no Malik Collins, no Jonathan Grenard, no Sheldon Rankins, no Will Anderson. So, Thursday, Friday, those are the super important days. But even if guys played, they're 100%. Derrick Henry's going to run the ball better than he did the first time the Texans played him. I don't believe he's King Henry of the past, though. So it goes to, okay, which quarterback are they going to play? Levis was a full participant in practice. I think they probably have him back and ready to rock. And so, okay, he'll throw you 1 or 2. They shut him down through the air. And that was on the road in bad conditions, in ideal conditions. Maybe he does a little bit better, but I'm not super worried about their ability to score on the Texans. Even if they put a few points up, they're not stopping Houston with C.J. Stroud. They're not going to slow down C.J. Stroud enough to beat the Texans. So I'm not super worried about this Titans matchup.
I like it. Nick, what you got?
I'm looking at Devin Singletary going into this game. Obviously, C.J. Stroud is the story, and that's going to be such a huge difference having him back. And as a fan of the Texans, as a fan of Houston football and the city of Houston in general, obviously I think the Texans are going to beat the Titans in this game. But I think that a key is going to be Devin Singletary, man. He against the Titans in that last game, 120 plus rushing yards. I think he had about 50 receiving yards. And it just seems like every game you're seeing him break off a short dump pass that he turns into a 40 or 50-yard gain. Now, half the time it seems like those get called back for holding. But he's an explosive guy. I think with all the injuries the Texans have had, he's someone that can really help move the ball. And also Dalton Schultz is a guy who I've been just continuously impressed with. Free agent signing from the Texans. You wonder how good of a year would he have or would he not have? And man, he's made some plays that I think have been really impressive in these last few weeks.
Yeah. So, Bo, what you got keys to the victory for this game?
Oh man, do what you did. Do what you did. Was it week 14, the last game? Just do that. Goals. Please
field goals.
do that, and I'll be happy. Of course, you want to see the touchdowns. Hopefully, we see the Stroud, and hopefully Nico Collins play, and we can see the chunk plays and everyone in the stadium go crazy. New Year's Eve type game. But yeah, stop Derrick Henry again. I feel like we come out with a victory. I don't think he only gets 9 yards this game. It would be a blessing if he does. If he do another 9-yard running, but probably not. It is an NRG. For some reason, he turned to Superman in NRG. I don't know why, but when he get in that building, he goes crazy. So hopefully they keep him contained. Don't let Will Levis go crazy on you. Keep Will Levis contained as well, and I believe we have this game won.
Agreed. I'm very, I'm thinking. I wonder, is Bobby going to go full on deck with CJ, or he's going to dial it down since he's been off a couple of weeks. So that's one of the things I'm going to be looking at right there. But hopefully win the game. And speaking of winning the game, give me your game predictions. Cody, go.
I like Texans 31, Titans 16.
Nick?
Okay, let's not forget the Texans might have the best kicker in the NFL, Kaimi Fairbairn, with his 5 field goals in the last game against the Titans. I'm going to say he's going for 3 more field goals in this game, and the Texans are also going to tack on a few touchdowns with CJ Stroud back. So let's go 42 Texans, Titans 24.
Okay.
Points. I like points. Points are exciting.
Bo Dickey, what you got?
I've been giving them points these past couple of weeks, and they've been breaking my heart. So I'm going to keep it low. I'm going to give low expectations. I am picking the Texans to win, so I'm going to go Texans 13, Titans 3. I'm going to keep it a low-scoring game.
Wow, 13.
Yeah.
That's a stinker, man.
I know they be breaking my heart, man.
I
Last couple weeks I've given 20 or more points, and they just.
Can I change my prediction? I want to change my prediction.
What you got?
So I thought that last week we were going to get a throwback to 2014 when Case Keenum took on a Joe Flacco-led playoff-bound team and upset them. That didn't happen. But we do get a 2014 repeat. In 2014, coming off of a benching, Ryan Fitzpatrick entered back into the starting lineup and threw 6 touchdown passes against the Tennessee Titans. Let's go 6 touchdown passes for CJ Stroud on Sunday. In a repeat of 2014.
That would be amazing. That will
be a welcome back. And if anybody got CJ on their championship roster for fantasy, you would definitely win that day. You would definitely win that day. I'm gonna go 27-17 Texans. I think we're gonna win. Home crowd is gonna be behind them. Everyone's gonna be pumped that CJ's back. Everyone's gonna hopefully be in their seats and have a Trillburger in their hand. And let's get this thing going. So on that note, before we leave, do you mind we ask you guys a couple of questions?
Far away.
Not at all.
All right. Nick, I'm gonna start with you. When did you know that Trillburgers was going to be as big as it is right now?
Oh, good question.
Oh, man.
Good question. I like that.
That is a great question. I knew we had something special from the early going. So I'm one of the co-owners, co-founders of Trillburgers, along, of course, with Bun B, the legend, and we've got 3 other partners, Andy, Chefs Mike, and Fernando. Shout out to all those guys. But, the first pop-ups we did, we had people lined up outside the building. I would say we never really – we're always surprised at the feedback and the turnout and the response. When it was 120 degrees this summer in Houston and we opened on June 7th and we had for probably 2 months just line or out the door. You never expect that. You never expect that. And every day I think we're very grateful for. So it's been crazy to see it inside NRG Stadium. I used to work there when I worked for the team, and coming back to games all these years later, we got 4 stands in the stadium on the 100 level and the 500 level. And the lines are long, and I know that's tough for a lot. We hear it from people that say it's rough waiting that long in line and things like that. we've made a lot of effort to really dial in as much as we can and make improvements and get them out as fast as we can. But man, I think I don't know, to answer your question, we did have a pop-up at Eighth Wonder Brewery last summer. It was the first pop-up we did after we were on Good Morning America and won Best Burger in America. And this first pop-up we did in Houston, and there was a line wrapped around the block. I think it was on Dallas Street in East Downtown, and people were lining up at like 9 a.m. for a 12 o'clock pop-up. And, right then I think we really knew that, okay, this is really something special. And it's been awesome to see the turnout and then all the love from people in Houston and beyond.
I love that honest answer, because he could have given this corporate BS like the first time I tasted the bourbon. But I like that honest answer from Nick. He crushed it. I like that.
Yeah. I remember me and my wife went to the training camp this past summer, and we was like, man, because I live in Dallas. I'm in DFW area, so I go down every now and then to go to the games. I'm born and raised in Houston, but I live in DFW. But
we don't hold that against you. We don't hold that
against you. we went down there. We had a great time at training camp. But it was like, man, we gotta get a Trill burger. So we go over there. We drive over there. It's a line, but I mean, the line moves so fast. It was so efficient. Granted, like you said, it was burning. It was 120 degrees out there, but there was water out there. The hospitality, customer service, it went boom, boom, boom. Before we know, we were sitting down with our burger, and amazing. So thank you for that.
Appreciate that very much, man. Thank you for coming through.
What I've been listening, because when I go to all the games and I'll be listening to the people around, they would like to have the sauce on the side where they can dip their fries. So that's something you might want to throw in the guy's ear for the future.
Little sauce dip inside. Okay.
Yeah,
we do that. We do that at the restaurant. We do have Trill sauce on the side. So I just wrote that down, though. I appreciate you bringing that up. We got a meeting next week that I think I need to call that to everybody's attention. So
boom.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Bo, you got anything for Nick before I go to Cody?
Oh no, you can go ahead and go.
All right.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Cody. This is my question. What did your mom cook for Christmas?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so she made homemade chocolate chip cookies last week. So those were good. She loves to put like her little spin. I think most Southern moms have their version of what they call just trash or Texas trash. So it's got like the Chex Mix and the pretzels and the peanuts. So she's got her own little seasoning and flavoring on that. So that's good. And then she did this. I don't even know. I just call it the dip. And you're like, well, the dip. It's a dessert dip. And so it's like this cream cheese, sour cream mixture with like, she did for Thanksgiving with like apple pie kind of flavors and like a little crumble on top. This one was a cherry blueberry flavored with like a little crumble on top. And it's almost like a pie / cheesecake, but you literally eat it as a dip. So like you take like Biscoff cookies or you take Nilla wafers and you're dipping it in there.
Yeah, man, Biscoff cookies.
And so I'm just like, every time I walk by, I just like take the top off, grab me a cookie. Like I probably gained 50 pounds eating that. And she's like, I'm going to try it with this flavor and that flavor. And I'm like, I'm in. Let me know.
Oh, man. Yeah,
it's great. I just call it, I guess got to come up with a better name than the dip or the dessert dip. But it's she's always down to try something, goofy or fun. Or she'll see it on TV and she's like, I could do this and make it better. And I'm just like, okay, all right, I'll try it, I twist my arm here, dip a cookie into a, pie / cheesecake dip. Oh man, real hard to convince me to do that.
Right.
Yep.
Bo, what you got?
I had a question for Cody. With covering the Texans, is it how can I put this? Is it I don't want to say hard to root against them, but do you feel like with covering them you have to be a Texans fan, or are you a Texans fan, or do you have a different team?
Yeah, so I grew up in Houston. I was, I used to have season tickets to the Texans. The Texans are my favorite NFL team. I like to feel like I do a good job of giving you my perspective of the game as I saw it.
Okay.
And however you feel like that's shaded. You know, I haven't been on the radio in Houston, and you know, Nick, you've listened to sports radio for a while. You guys know about sports radio. One person thinks you're a kiss ass, the next person thinks you're too hard on the team. You know, so it varies from person to person. What I'll always tell you is, when I give an opinion or my analysis of the team, that's me. Like you're getting it from me. Shade it however you want to shade it. Think about it however you want to think about it. I'm passionate about covering the team. I'm passionate about the team, and I'm passionate about bringing that coverage to people that want it. And so I think that's the way I answer that question more often than not.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, that answered my question.
Well, there it is. Well, it's the end of the show. So before we get out of here, Cody, tell the listeners and viewers where they can find your great work at.
So I'm on YouTube. Just search my name, Cody Stoots. You'll find the channel here on YouTube, and then my website where I do all my writing, www.houfootball.com. Just type in Houston football, Cody Stoots in the Google machine. You'll find it. We got free content on there, subscription for all the content. I'll make it worth your money. I promise you. I promise you. I will make it worth your money. Just $7 a month to get started. You buy a whole year ahead of time. I'll give you 2 months free as well. And I will make it worth your money if you want to sign up. The links are all over where you find me. And I'll tell you what, for everybody watching, you want a free week, DM me on Twitter/X, and I'll get you a free week to the site.
There it is. There it is. Upgrade, baby. Nick,
there you go.
Tell the folks where they can find you at, man.
Yeah, I realized I didn't put my social media handle in my name here like everybody else, but I'm at Nick Scurfield on TikTok. Oh, sorry, on Twitter and Instagram. TikTok is actually at Scurf Show. I post stuff from Texans games, stuff from Astros games, in Houston and beyond, in the trenches of Dodger Stadium and whatnot. And I will say I always enjoy listening to Cody and hearing Cody talk football, talk sports. I think he's got, a great perspective on it, and great opinions on things. So appreciate you guys having me on. We talked about Trill Burgers. That's at Trill Burgers everywhere on social, and you can find us at 3607 South Shepherd. And while I'm doing a shameless plug, we're in sections 115, 135, 522, and 548 at NRG Stadium. And my PR agency, Scurfield Group, is scurfieldgroup.com. So I think that's about all I can say before you guys cut me off here.
And on a side note, 135, that's my section. So I got Trill Burgers right behind me. So, hey, I'll be there all the time.
Let's go.
Wait, did I hear that? Wait, Crenshaw was buying burgers for everybody? Is that what I heard?
Exactly.
Hey,
I heard that.
Come over there. I got you.
And let's try to link up, man. I'll be out there on Sunday, so I'd love to see you out there at the game.
Already. Bo, tell the folks where they can find you at.
Oh, y'all know, find me everywhere across all socials, TikTok, X, Twitter, whatever y'all want to call it, at Bo Diggity 713.
All right. You can find our other co-hosts, Matthew Bridges at A1 Day One Texans, and then you can find me at Fifth Wall Crenshaw everywhere. And fellas, we are out.